ist unerbittlich. Er ist investigativ. Er geht der Sache auf den Grund. Herzlich willkommen bei Chris geht der Sache auf den Grund.
Does it already? Well, I have to cut, I think. I think it started, but it shows nowhere. Huh. Strange.
Actually,
Now we have it. Okay.
Yes.
We're here. Okay, hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Chris Investigates. Today I'm talking to Mr. Hermann Luttmann, the designer of games like Dawn of the Zeds in magnificent style, Invaders from Dimension X, or A Spoiled Victory Dunkirk. And since Dawn of the Zeds is my personal favorite tower defense and zombie-themed board game, yes, for me is a two-time winner. I'm very happy to talk to him today. Hi, Herm. How are you?
Guten Abend, wie geht's?
Okay, it sounds cool. Your German fans will be very happy now. I'm fine too, thanks. And let's start talking about Dawn of the Zeds and its different iterations. So it all started in, I think, 2011 with the first edition.
Yes.
Which was published by Victory Point Games.
VPG, yes.
Yeah, VPG, followed by the second edition 2 years ago. 2 years later.
Later, yes.
Second edition is a bit older than 2019. Okay. And Dawn of the Zeds is part of the States of Siege series by VPG.
It is.
And but when did this idea come to your mind? I need to design a zombie-themed States of Siege game.
Well, that's interesting. States of Siege was designed by Darren Leveloff originally with Israeli Independence. And then there were a few more games after that. And then I played Zulus on the Ramparts, which was about Rourke's Drift. And as I was playing it, it just occurred to me all of a sudden. I said, "Oh, what if this was just zombies attacking a house or something? That's kind of logical. I'm sure somebody's already thought of that." So, I really enjoyed Zulus on the Ramparts, and I kept playing it, and I kept thinking, well, boy, Zulus would really work with this, but I'm sure somebody's already thought of that. So I actually wrote to Alan because we had been working together on my first design, which was Gettysburg, the wheat field. And I said to him, I know this is a stupid question, and I know somebody's already submitted this, but I just had an idea of doing this as a zombie game. And he said to me, no, nobody's ever thought of that, and nobody's submitted a game. And I was actually shocked because for me, it's such a logical application of the States of Siege engine. So I said, all right, well, that's great. And then I just decided to design it from there. It actually got rejected the first time it got designed because it was too I was a war gamer my entire life. So this was the first real non-war game design, but it was still my first attempt was very war gamey. And he said, nah, it's too much combat, too much this, too much tactical stuff. Let's change it a little bit. So I had to redesign it, which I did. And what you see is how it came out.
Yes, and it came out very good.
Thank you.
Because 2 years later, there was a second edition. And
yes.
What led to the decision to make this second edition?
Well, the first edition was so successful that we decided to expand upon that first edition and do a bigger boxed game. The original was only in a folio, in a plastic bag. So the second edition, we decided to expand upon the idea. That's where the doctor came in, Dr. Martuz, and the tunnel track and all that kind of stuff. And so we just expanded the whole idea of it and just gave people a little bit more to the story. And then after that, I actually did the director's cut, which was an expansion to the second edition, and that was all the ideas that we cut out from the second edition, and then we just add, we just threw everything in there. So yeah, that was just a larger, more comprehensive version of the first edition. And it came in a box.
It came in a box.
Games,
yes, VPG had those wonderful pizza boxes.
Yes, that was one of the first really, pizza box games.
Yeah, that was so cool. I'm missing it really. By the way, do you have a favorite States of Siege game?
What was my favorite of them all? I really enjoyed the Keep Up the Fire, which was about the Peking, the Boxer Rebellion. That was probably my favorite of the bunch.
Okay.
That was designed by John Welch, and actually he just got that, also a deluxe edition of that by Worthington is coming out.
Ah, that's interesting. Ah, yeah. Very cool. Worthington bought many licenses or designs from VPG.
They did. As a matter of fact, just today they launched Malta Besieged.
Malta Besieged, yes.
Which is by Steve Carey. And they just did Soviet Dawn and Keep Up the Fire. So they're getting a lot of the more war gamey, more simulation, conflict simulation games and redoing them. And they just do a magnificent job. I mean, in magnificent style is gorgeous. Yes. They did such a great job with it.
Yes, of course, and I think it's important that those designs don't get lost.
I totally agree. There were some great early designs from Victory Point Games. I liked a game called Forlorn Hope. I don't know if you remember that one, but
yes.
That was a kind of a space dungeon crawl. I think it was Chris Taylor, I think, designed that one. I'm hoping somebody picks that up too. That was one of my favorites in the early days. But there were a lot of great games that Victory. It's a shame what happened to Victory Point Games. They really,
yes,
I mean, they had a certain function in the market where new design. I mean, they gave me a chance to design, and John and Steve and everybody. We all got our start there, and there was a lot of great talent that went through there, and they had a good deal with GMT Games where they would take like Carl Paradis's No Retreat games, and they made them into big deluxe box games. So it's a shame, but Tiny Battle's doing a lot of that now, that kind of stuff where they're doing the smaller games and letting new designers get a chance.
Yeah.
Or
yeah. Absolutely, Herm. Absolutely, and I'm still hoping for a new edition for. Barbarossa campaign, for example.
That's funny you should mention. I was just thinking about that game today, and I'm like, oh my god, that would be a great game to do a big, beautiful deluxe version of.
Yeah.
I don't know who has the rights to it. I don't know where it is.
Yeah, you're right. We need to ask Alan.
Yes.
Okay. Let's get back to Dawn of the Zeds.
Yes.
Another 3 years later, the third edition was published,
right.
And it was a huge success for VPG and the Kickstarter they made. I think the biggest success they ever had until this day. And have you been involved in its development?
Not really. The third edition is essentially a super deluxe version of the first two. Plus the expansion I mentioned. So that's all in the third edition. The third edition's unique part is the cooperative play, right? Which was not, I mean, Dawn of the Zeds was always a solitaire game primarily. Though theoretically, you could play any solitaire game as a co-op game, right? As a matter of fact, that's the way I played Dawn of the Zeds with my kids when I first was starting it. We played it together. I let them make the decisions. We made choices together, and I just did the actual movement of pieces or whatever, and I let them roll the dice. So, but the third edition has a legitimate cooperative variant on it. That was all Alan Emmerich and that crew. They did all that.
Yeah.
True co-op was not really my strong suit. So Alan was very in tune with what to do with the game cooperatively. So I just said, you go ahead and just do it. It's fine. I mean, it's, a lot of people still like the third edition just as a solo game. It has all the original elements in it. Yes.
Like me.
Right.
It's of course it's more or less the same game as the second edition.
More or
With
less, yes.
a bit streamlined here and there, a graphical overhaul,
Right.
and though I miss a few things, like arresting Dr. Matthews. Yes, such things are there. There was the event. Matthews came into the game, and you had the opportunity to arrest him and such things.
Yes.
I think it gave the game another layer of depth. And but of course, I think Matthews comes in the versus mode in the third edition.
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, I never played it. For me, it's still a solo game.
Well, our original plan was to take that whole storyline with Dr. Martus, and we were going to do another Dawn of the Zeds and do it as an inside out, quote unquote, inside out States of Siege game where you would start in the middle of the board and Dr. Martus and the Zeds would try to break out and you would have to contain them so they wouldn't get out into the world. So that was our original plan for that, but then things happened to BPG and it just never took off. Maybe someday, who knows?
Would have become interesting. So now we are coming to the time where VPG came to an end, and we're wondering ourselves, we fans in Germany of the game, what about new expansions? Did you hear anything about new expansions for Dawn of the Zeds?
I know that Alan is working on 2 or 3 of them.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I don't know what they contain necessarily. A lot of the expansions have little bits and pieces from the second edition and director's cut sprinkled in there. So maybe some of the new expansions will have some of the things that were in the second edition or in the expansion that haven't come out yet.
Yeah.
So
okay. So you won't be involved, or does Alan?
Not unless he asks me to be involved.
He calls Herm. I need your help.
Yeah, that hasn't happened yet, but that's okay.
Okay, yeah, that's cool because it's such a great game and so many people who love it. And in Germany, since it is translated, there is a German edition, and it's
when did that edition come out? Is that new?
It came out 2 years ago. I'm not sure. 1 or 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But it's really cool. It's they made a fantastic job at translation, and it brought a wider audience here in Germany for this really fantastic game, and that's really cool. And now we want more, of course.
I'm glad to hear that they did it. That must have been it must be quite difficult to translate a very thick board game like that into another language. I mean, that must be quite a job.
Yeah, yes, of course, and I think it helps the decision to make this different levels to get into the game. Was the right decision to get a wider audience for it, I think. That helps, of course. Well, we'll wait and see if new expansions will come one day. So, Herm, what are you working on at the moment? As far as I know, there is a game on Kickstarter coming soon, isn't it?
Yes, it's probably one of my largest games, design-wise and physically. It's enormous.
Okay.
It's called A Most Fearful Sacrirfice. It is all 3 days of the Battle of Gettysburg.
Okay, so a real war game.
Yes, this is a legitimate big-time war game, yes.
Okay.
It's based on the blind sword system, which has appeared in At Any Cost, Stonewall Sword, Thunder in the Ozarks, Longstreet Attacks. There's a bunch of games that use that system, and this is actually based on a small one I did for Tiny Battle called The Devils to Pay, which was on the first day of Gettysburg. So many people asked, can you do the second day? Can you do the third day? That we just decided, you know what? instead of doing them in little pieces like that, let's just do one big deluxe Battle of Gettysburg game. And this is it. It's the map is 15 square feet. It's actually 2 hard mounted maps.
Whoa. Cool.
Yes.
Okay.
But most of the scenarios, there's 13 scenarios in the game. 9 of them only use one of the 2 maps. So if people have issues with space, there's still plenty of game to be played with one of the 2 maps.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about the mechanics? Is it card driven? Is it dice based? A mix of both?
Both of the above. Yes. So the blind sword system is it's basically a tactical system. The original system was regimental. This is what we call demi brigades, which is a brigade could be 1 to 4 counters depending on how the units were deployed at the Battle of Gettysburg. So the system uses what I call a historical chaos system, which is it's a chit pull. Random events could come up that you have to deal with on the fly. This particular version of the system uses cards instead of chits because if we use chits, there'd just be too many chits in the cup. You know, you could have 30 or 40 chits in the cup. We don't want to do that because we don't want to bog the game down. So converted to cards. So you draw cards to activate cores. And the advantage of using cards is also that all the rules are on the card, right? So if you draw an event, instead of having to look it up on a table, the description of the event and how you implement it in the game is right on the card. Okay. Also, the activation tables for the different cores are right on the cards too, so you don't have to look them up either. So it's 1 hour turns. The hexes are 200 yards. It's a Rick Barber map again. If anybody knows Rick Barber, he does the very hand-drawn, every rock, every tree. It's very detailed, and it's pretty impressive when you see it on the table.
Okay, do you have an example of one of his works?
Well, he did all the Blind Swords games. So if anybody looked at any of those, he did all those. He did the original map for In Magnificent Style. He did. He has a game called Summer Storm that he did back in the 90s, I think, that used that kind of graphics. I think one of the Napoleon at Leipzig games from Clash of Arms uses the map. So when people see it, they'll recognize the style. It's a very unique style. You will not see any other graphic artist, map artist use this style. It's very unique. Yes.
Okay, now I'm excited. Will A Most Fearful Sacrirfice be soloable?
It will be soloable only in the sense that all chit pull games tend to be soloable. Okay, but it's primarily a 2-player game, though you can play with more. But a lot of people like the blind sword system because of the chit pull mechanics, so that you are only resolving 1 chit at a time, so you're not overwhelmed if you're playing solo, having, you know, you draw the chit and then you just concentrate on that particular chit and resolve it the best you can. So this will fall into that category too.
Okay, just a bit like, don't know, Nuclear Winter by Lock and Load. There was a chit pull system.
68.
68, right? Yes.
I actually have a copy of that game. That game is so much fun.
Yeah, great game, definitely. And there's a similar chit pull system. You put the you pull the chit.
Yes, for the World at War system.
Now it's your turn. You can do this and that. Okay.
Correct. Right.
Yeah, cool. I like chit pull.
Good.
What's the playtime for the game?
Oh, well, it will go anywhere from, you could do the learning scenario, which is just the battle around Little Round Top. You could do that in an hour. Okay. Cool. The big 3-day could be 20 hours. It's if you do all 3 days, you know, it'll be a while. But I specifically designed the game to be playable, so it's not, even if you do the 3-day campaign, it's not impossible to play. There's only 24 pages of rules, so it's, you know, there's 200 pieces. It's a very accessible game. It's not going to be overwhelming. Not for experienced war gamers who are used to big games.
Okay, so it's a 2-player game.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
makes sense. And Okay, you already said 24 pages of rules. Would you recommend it to a non-war gamer?
Probably not. I think it's probably a little bit much for the non-war gamer. I would start with something simpler than that.
Okay.
I mean, no, to be honest, it's a crunchy war game. There's no question about it.
Okay. Yeah, that's we need to know it, of course.
Yes.
Can you already tell us something about the stretch goals? Do you know what's waiting for us in the stretch goals? Will it be component upgrades or?
Yes, I asked Mark, please don't make me design anything else for the stretch goals. It took me a good year of work to put this game together. One of the problems we had with Crowbar, which is another game I did on Kickstarter, is the stretch goals became more and more modules and add-on, and I had to design more and more and more as the stretch goals were getting hit, and that was a real headache. Oh my goodness. So the game's totally designed. Everything we add to it now will be components. So I know one thing he's doing, which is really cool, is he's doing neoprene strips so that for the scenarios where you don't use the entire map, where you have to border off some hex rows and things like that, you put these neoprene strips down and it will border in the hexes for you. It's just a nicer way of presenting. So if you're not using the entire map, just a section of it, you use these neoprene maps to border off your area. And they're designed, they have nice graphics on them and the logo for the game and all that. So those are really nice.
That's
so that'll be one of the, I'm sure we'll do like special dice. I'm trying to get him. I asked him if he could look into maybe getting card sleeves. I like to sleeve my cards. And I figured, especially if you shuffle them a lot. You know.
Of course.
So we're going to look into that. So there's a few, but any upgrade, any stretch goals we do have will be things like that, like just component upgrades and linen finish, things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're wishing you much success for the campaign.
Thank you.
May you raise your funding goal and much far beyond it. All the best for the
Kickstarters are always very nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I can believe you. But I'm always on the other side. I have to pledge, and then I'm gone.
I pledge a lot too. I love doing the Kickstarter. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Do you have some other projects coming in the future you'd like to tell us about?
Well, now that I actually retired last year, so I actually have more time now. I'm doing, oh boy, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I'm doing a big project with GMT, GMT Games, and it's not a war game. So it's going to be a horror cooperative game. So if you like Dawn of the Zeds, you're going to love this one.
Okay, yes. Now I'm listening.
It's called the Plum Island Horror, and it's a cooperative game where people run asymmetrical factions on the island, and they're trying to hold back this horde of monsters. I don't use the word zombies anywhere in the game. They're not zombies. And they're coming down the island, down these tracks, and you have to coordinate with your friends and use your strengths of your different factions to hold them back. You have to evacuate the civilians. So I actually got the idea for the game from the Dunkirk game. Because as I was designing the Dunkirk game, I said, oh, well, this would be kind of cool if you had to evacuate people from a monstrous attack instead of a historical World War II thing. That would be really fun, where the primary goal of the game is to get these people off as this wave of monsters are coming. So that's the basis of the game. There's also infection and combat and other things. And it is a lot of fun to design this thing. So we're in the process of doing development work on it now, and I'm hoping it'll hit P500 by the end of this summer.
Ah, cool. Yeah, this would be my next question, or that would have been my next question. The famous P500 list.
The famous P500, yes, which is actually a P750 or something like that.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really cool, Herman.
Yep.
I will have an eye on it when it appears.
Oh, thank you.
And
that would be for general game. It's being designed specifically for general gamers. So it's the kind of game that a GMT wargame fan could play, you know, with his or her wife or husband or children or friends who are not necessarily into wargaming. So it's designed to be, you know, the mass market cooperative type of game that you see that other companies are doing.
Cool. Does it already have a title?
The Plum Island Horror. Yeah.
Sorry,
Plum Island. Plum Island is an actual island off the coast of Long Island where they do biological experiments.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's called the Plum Island Horror.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Yes, didn't hear about it. That sounds cool. Okay, Herm, thank you very much for your time. This was great fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, and have a great time. Stay healthy, and I'd love to see you again when Plum Island Horror is on P500 to talk about that game.
We will. That's a date. We will do that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Can't wait, Herm.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye. Auf Wiedersehen.
Good.